This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different Q's.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with Maine State Senator and independent gubernatorial candidate Rick Bennett. So you voted in support of LD 1971, which limits ICE cooperation with law enforcement in Maine. Tell us about it.
So I don't believe it limits it so much as provides some guidelines around it, because we pay for our local and state law enforcement with property tax dollars. We talked about that, as well as state tax dollars. And they need to be focusing on public protections in our communities. And that bill, as amended, does a good job, in my view, of defining how interagency task forces will work and how the state and local authorities can work with ICE and other federal law enforcement. I've been increasingly worried that under both Democratic and Republican federal administrations, presidents, there's been an increasing politicization of our law enforcement at the federal level. I just think it's important that working with the feds is appropriate. We also put respect first and foremost with local and state law enforcement and the property taxpayers and the general fund taxpayers that pay their bills. I worry about them being commandeered for other purposes that don't relate really to protections of our communities and our neighborhoods.
Are you for a sanctuary state?
No. In fact, that bill has been characterized by some as being a bill to create a sanctuary state, and that's not its purpose at all. I don't believe it's what it does. The bill was enacted in the legislature. It's sitting currently on the governor's desk and awaiting her action, but I don't believe it in any way creates a sanctuary state.
We've interviewed a lot of law enforcement lately, Sheriff Troy Morton, Brewer Chief Christopher Martin, and they are telling us that here in the Bangor market, there is now cartel gang members that are drug trafficking kilos of cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and it used to be ounce and half ounce. And I'm hearing that this is the way it is across the state of Maine. What's your plan to tackle the drug trafficking issue?
Well, first of all, we need to acknowledge it. And I don't hear that coming out of the administration currently in Augusta, and it doesn't seem to be a huge issue for policymakers, and certainly not disproportionate to its impact on people's lives. I'm all for prevention. I'm all for recovery. I'll be attending Sunday the Western Maine Recovery Rally, and these are folks who are finding support in their family and their community and finding paths to recovery, and we need to do that. But we need to stop these drugs from coming into Maine, and we need to have really tough policies on the people who are trafficking. I don't understand exactly why there's been a lack of focus on that law enforcement side, because I think that's something that all Mainers see. There's a little bit of cross-finger pointing, the feds and the state, and sometimes locally, about whose responsibility is it? We saw that with the fentanyl issues. But as governor, I'm going to appoint a public safety commissioner and a head of the state police who will make this a priority, because this is killing people, literally. And if public safety is in the word, well, it starts with people's lives. And that's why I support aggressive opportunities for people to get recovered. I supported the Good Samaritan law, which provides some cover for people who, when somebody's dying, to report in and call 911 rather than worry about getting arrested. I think we need to save lives first and foremost. And that means stopping the drugs from entering Maine and shutting down these cartels and these gangs.
So being an independent running for governor, are you going to have a tough time raising money since you don't have one party or the other supporting you?
It's a steeper hill to climb, no question, but I have to raise money for the general election because I don't have to go through a primary. As I said at the outset, the parties have become money pumping machines, and that's what they're good at. And they're good at trying to get their people elected, and that involves tapping the usual assortment of ultra wealthy sources. So it's a steeper climb for me, but I'm spoiling for it, and I'm working on it and had early success because I think people have really responded to the need for an independent candidacy. But I've done a lot of work in money in politics. I appreciate the issue very clearly. Because of Citizens United and other related court decisions, some people have thrown up their hands and said there's nothing we can do unless we amend the Constitution. I disagree with that. In fact, I put a bill in the legislature to have truth and disclosure, which seems logical. People should know, if people are spending millions of dollars in Maine elections, what the source of the money is and what potential conflicts that source might have with the public interest. And I built this proposal off from an Arizona law, which was passed and adopted with over 70% of the vote in Arizona and was tested in the courts and has survived the court scrutiny. What it does is it says if you're an independent PAC and you want to spend money to influence an election and you spend more than $5,000, you need to tell the Ethics Commission and the public what the sources of those $5,000 plus contributions are. And if that source wasn't the original source, what happens is you have Mothers for Apple Pie give money to Mothers for America, and then they give money to the people who support puppies, and then it ends up in this PAC. And so it's all stacked up to deliberately obfuscate where the money's come from. That's why they call it dark money. My bill would seek to make dark money go away by making people who are contributing over $5,000 disclose all the way back up the chain to the original source. That dark money billionaire or that big corporation or that special interest group that generated that money has to report it. That bill, unhappily, because of the partisanship in Maine, was unanimously killed. Both the Republicans and the Democrats thought that was a bad idea. I'll tell you another idea I had, which I thought made sense. And again, the one thing the Republicans and Democrats could agree on was to kill my bill. And that was to allow...
I was going to say, you brought them together.
Exactly. So this other bill would have put party caucuses in the legislature where all the House Republicans or all the Senate Democrats go behind closed doors and make decisions and strategize and beat on their members to make sure they vote the way that the party leaders want them to. That all happens behind closed doors. Well, as you know, in a town office, if you get 3 selectmen together and they're having lunch at the diner, they can't talk town business. It's against the law. And that's true of school board members and other local public officials. It's called the Freedom of Access Act. But guess what? It doesn't apply to legislative caucuses. So a majority of a chamber can sit behind closed doors, exclude the press, exclude the public, make their decisions, come out and vote, and nobody knows why. So I put a bill in to just open up party caucuses, legislators, to the same rules that apply at the local level for the rest of Maine public servants. And of course, they agreed unanimously to kill that too, Republicans and Democrats. But it's something I will pursue further when I'm governor. I think we have a long tradition of having a government which is transparent and accountable in Maine. I think we've lost some ground on that recently, and I'd like to restore it. And we'll be putting forward a package of reforms to do that.
As governor, how would you get that through?
There's a thing called the bully pulpit. Elevate issues. I look at money in politics, and I look at some of these issues as being very corrosive to people's faith in government. When you lose people's faith in government, bad things happen. And we need to respect people's ability to participate in government. We need to respect the rule of law. There's certain bedrock elements to our republic that we've created, and we need to protect those beyond everything. And I think these are areas where we really just need to require attention. Once attention comes, I think people will be in a better position to do the right thing.
What about the lobbyists down there? Are they involved quite a bit on some of these bills?
Yeah, that's another issue I've worked on. Our lobbying laws are a bit loose. I put a bill in to require immediate disclosure because sometimes these issues pop up kind of late in the session. A bill will suddenly appear and all of a sudden there's a lot of people. You can't turn around without somebody who's a newly employed lobbyist that just got hired to do something. And often because of the late reporting, people can't know who's really hired people and on what basis until 45 days later. And the session may have ended and the issue's gone away. I put a bill in to require immediate disclosure. So when somebody signs a contract to represent an interest and they're a lobbyist, they need to register with the Ethics Committee the same day. That bill, too, was killed by both the Republicans and Democrats working with a lobby to kill that bill. A lot of these issues start and often end with disclosure. Because as long as people know what's going on, they can make their judgments. The media can report on it. There's a lot of people who have great social media platforms that have followings, and they can create news too when there's news to be made. But it starts with basic information about who's working for whom, and even if you don't get into exactly how much they're getting paid.
Do you think if more people got involved with their local legislators, that it would get rid of some of the lobbies? Because I know a lot of people that complain, but they never call anybody to tell them how they voted.
A lot of people have lost faith that their voice actually matters. And one of the casualties of that is less maybe communication and outreach to their local legislator. They don't think it matters. They don't think they'll be listened to. And that also has its own corrosive effect. And we need to do everything we can to arrest that. Unfortunately, in Maine, people are still local. You can call up your legislator and probably get him on the phone. You might run into him in the grocery store, and the kids may go to school together. Maine's still the place that if you raise your hand at the wrong time, you're elected to the school board, So there's that kind of immediacy of politics in Maine, which I think means that we have an opportunity to actually reclaim our politics and reclaim our republic and reclaim our government. Other states that may be bigger or less community-oriented may have gone too far. I don't think we have in Maine, and that's really the underpinnings of why I'm running for governor as an independent, because I have great faith that given the right agency of leadership, people can rally to a different purpose and a different way of governing ourselves. It's completely within our power.
So being an independent, you must have a different campaign style?
Well, I have certainly a different schedule, I think, than some of the party candidates who are going to, party event after party event and seeing the usual folks and the special interest groups in those parties. I've been doing a lot of house parties where friends of mine from across the state have welcomed their neighbors and their associates into their home to hear me and interact with me directly and expanding my network that way. I've been going to events to learn about issues, and it's very liberating being independent because I can do things like I did today. Before I came in, I was at the Maine Council of Aging Summit at the Cross Insurance Center in Bangor, and I was at the Maine People's Alliance annual dinner last night. I've toured Jackson Labs. I've toured Hyperlight, which is a business down in Biddeford, doing amazing work with creating lightweight backpacks and other hiking gear. I visited Tanbark in Saco, who are doing amazing work, basically using wood products to replace plastics in molded products for various business applications. The day I walked in, they had just won a $1 million award. You appreciate as business people. They got electricians on one wall rewiring the whole place, and the executive team is in a corner, and they're being displaced by more machines coming in the next week and all of this. I've been really enjoying that. I took a Main Street walk with Mayor Groman of Biddeford, too, and I sat with him at coffee time. I'm going to be doing a lot more of that, which is more direct outreach rather than through the usual party gatekeeper approach that happens there, which I find really helpful and just inspiring to see all the amazing things that Maine people are doing in the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world, local governments. There's a lot of good news going on that isn't really widely reported, but I'm learning from all of that, and I think I'll be a better governor for it. It's also a lot of fun just to get in and meet these people who are really driving Maine forward.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a discussion with Maine State Senator and independent gubernatorial candidate, Rick Bennett. Before we let you go, what do you want to say to the voters out there?
I want to say that you don't have to take politics as it's currently served up by the parties and by the existing political structure and the political class in Maine and beyond. We can create our own. And I hope that you look at my candidacy as an agency for your own personal involvement and maybe re-inspiration and getting more involved in your community and involved in politics, because politics shouldn't be unpleasant. It shouldn't be toxic. It shouldn't be built on fear and hostility. It should be built on the better parts of our nature, which are love, kindness, civility, humanity. And that's the kind of campaign I'm building. It's also inclusive. I really want to hear from people. People ask me, why are you running as an independent? The truth is, I want to govern as an independent, which means having seats at the table for everyone, listening to voices, making some decisions, moving the state forward assertively, not shrinking from decision-making, but making sure that people's voices are heard in the process and the decisions that I'm rendering are more informed than they would otherwise be if you're just listening to one side or the other. So that's the kind of candidacy I'm creating. It's the kind of governor I want to be. And if you're interested, you're welcome to join us. We've got people from across the political spectrum who've joined us. We've built a great campaign team in process of continuing to do that. We're setting up an office in Auburn for our headquarters. It will be volunteer friendly. So it's going to be a great campaign over the coming 15 months. And we've given ourselves a long runway in order to make sure that we can involve as many people as possible and build this out in a very constructive, positive way for the people of Maine.
So what's the best way for somebody to join your campaign?
Just reach out to us at bennettforgovernor.com. That's BENNETT for governor.com. There's plenty of information there. There'll be more forthcoming in policy and events and all of that. But if you sign up there, you can keep informed. We'll be emailing out my schedule coming up. In fact, I plan in October to be doing a lot of personal availability all across the state. So at coffee shops, at brew pubs, at town halls. I just want to make myself available so people can bring me their ideas and I can come into their communities and at a convenient place, I can hear what they have to say. So all of that will be on our website as well.
So more of a grassroots campaign?
It's very much a grassroots campaign. It's got to be when you're running as an independent in particular. There's no other way to do it.
How's Karen? She's excited about this?
Yeah, Karen and our kids, Abby and Nathaniel, are all in. They're enjoying it. We had our launch on June 24th and at a manufactured housing facility, a modular home manufacturer in South Paris, KBS Homes. And it was the hottest day of the year, 99 degrees. We had over 120 people there from all across the political spectrum, all across Maine, looking for a new kind of leadership. Karen was there, my mom, kids, lots of relatives. We're all very excited about this journey and this next step in our own personal journey.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. We really do appreciate it. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it's wonderful to reconnect. And thank you for what you're doing with your podcast. It's adding real value to public discourse in Maine, and we need that.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Earlier in this episode, we referenced our conversation with Brewer Police Chief Christopher Martin. To close us out today, we want to share that excerpt so you can hear his words for yourself. If you'd like to listen to the entire episode with Chief Martin, visit qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. In studio is Brewer Police Chief Christopher Martin.
I'm going to go back to what's happening currently. This built up through, we talked about the bath salts, we talked about why is it fentanyl now. Back in the early 2000s, our users used to drive to Massachusetts. They'd procure enough drugs to cover their use and sell a little bit back home to cover their costs. Now, source supply is coming to Maine. We have kilo quantity availability in the greater Bangor market. And I'm talking about kilos of fentanyl, kilos of methamphetamine, kilos of cocaine. We never had that in the past. We might have ounce, half pound. Our market never had that until the past 5 years. And the people bringing that up are associated with organized crime. Directly underneath, as the drugs flow through this drug marketplace, we start with the cartels, and then we invariably go into organized crime like street gangs or ethnic gangs. So some of the groups that are operating here in this area, or that have been operating here, particularly that we've encountered, have been members of the Bloods out of New York, primarily Manhattan, Bronx area. And we've had gang members out of Hartford, Connecticut area, out of Greater Boston area, and Dominican drug trafficking organizations have been around here for 5-6 years, moving quite a bit of dope. So they're bringing these much larger quantities because we have such a high demand. There's money to be made in these markets. So one of the worst things that you can do is to create public policy that nurtures this drug economy because you're bringing more in and you're creating more demand. And when you get into drug dealing, you're getting into weapons and violence. I don't care what level. If it's a street level dealer, that weapon might be a knife, might be a screwdriver or a bat. But the higher up you go on the food chain, the more sophisticated the weaponry. The Mexican cartel may have military-grade weapons, but our street gangs, they have guns. And the reason why you use guns is that you're protecting yourself from rivals. You're protecting yourself from having your product stolen, because you're not going to rely on the police, right? So that's where the weaponry comes in, and that's where the violence comes in. And we're already starting to see that in headlines in Maine. And people have to wake up and pay attention. We have to do things that's not so nurturing to a drug economy if you want to help people people from top to bottom or bottom to top. We have to pay attention to this.
What is the next step?
Just getting people to talk about this, to think about it, to listen. I don't have all the answers. I simply don't. We got to throw away the far right and the far left policies or strategies, and we just got to have common sense discussions about, would this work? Why wouldn't this work? Why this is a good idea or that's a bad idea? And for our elected folks down in Augusta, if we could just take a moment and put the D's and the R's aside and have an honest deliberation around this, and we could probably figure out or craft a path forward. But we don't have control at the end of the day. It's your elected officials that are making the laws and the public policies, and we'll have to see where that brings us.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
We want to take a moment to thank our listeners. If you'd like to know in advance who our guests will be sure to follow us on Facebook or on X. We do keep it updated with our upcoming guest appearances. And if you have a topic of interest, absolutely reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We appreciate the support. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.